What's the story, lads? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Dublin 117, Monaghan 13 points. Dublin are through to the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Final. And big up the lads. Great results, great win, great day. Great day all around. I mean, look, the weather was absolutely brutal, but a win is a win. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. The win is a win. That's all you want. You want the victory. You want the win. And that is exactly what Dublin have produced in Croke Park. And you know, it was sort of to be honest, the game sort of went the way I expected. To be honest with you, the game very much went the way I expected in Croke Park. I expected Monaghan to dig deep. I expected Monaghan to keep the ball for large parts. I expected Monaghan to frustrate Dublin for the majority of the game, but I expected Dublin to pull away in the final sort of 5-10 minutes or so. And in the end, that's what Dublin done. And as one of the comments says here, Workmail says, harsh scoreline. Yeah, look, it probably was. That goal right at the end, obviously, from Dean Rock. I mean, I was hearing some controversy around the goal. I'm not entirely sure what happened with the goal. Apparently, I don't know, a lot of people were saying it shouldn't have been allowed or something like that. I haven't seen it back, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, it probably, like going into the final 10 minutes, it probably did look like Monaghan had a serious chance. You know, Monaghan were definitely going into the closing stages, and going into the final like 5 or 6 minutes, Monaghan were more than in it. I always expected Monaghan would have a shout, though. Like, one thing I said in the preview show, and one thing I said in the lead up to this game, is that Monaghan don't die. Monaghan keep battling. They have that fight. They have that tenacity about themselves that means that they will not lie down. And that was the same in this game. You know, Monaghan weren't beaten until really that Dean Rock goal went in, which was obviously in the final couple of minutes of injury time. Dublin were 4 points up after that. Dean Rock had scored a point from coming off the bench as well. So Dublin looked pretty comfortable. At that stage. And it was looking like we were going to go on and obviously, you know, win the game. And that's very much what happened. And it was, yeah, it was slow. It was lethargic at times. Monaghan, I thought, done well defensively. Kieran Hughes, I thought, had a good game. Rory Beggan was very impressive as well. 3 points, obviously, all of which from frees. Conor McManus with 5 points. Monaghan done well. Monaghan kept in the game. They managed the game well. But Dublin just, I always felt like Dublin were fairly comfortable. I remember I was sitting beside a Down fan who was obviously there for the Meath game, and he was cheering on Monaghan and everything else. And, you know, I was saying to him, look, I'm not, you know, even at halftime, I wasn't too worried. You know, I think that at this stage of the season, the most important thing is to win. You know, performances at this stage, as big as performances are, they kind of go out the window. And like we've seen with Dublin at the best of times, like obviously if we play like that against Kerry, for example, in the final, look, Kerry will wipe the floor with us. But at the same time, Dublin have played like this for the majority of the season. And yeah, here we are going into our first All-Ireland final since 2020. So it's kind of not that big of a concern. I feel like Dublin at times in this game turned it on. There was a moment in the second half going into the final 5-6 minutes where we turned over Monaghan 3-4 kickouts in a row. Jack McCaffrey, I thought, was phenomenal. He gets himself a point towards the end of the game. Brian Fenton was very good as well. Paul Mannion wins a free and then slots it over. Might have been a mark, actually. And Dublin were just, yeah, like it was very much probably how I expected the game to go. Monaghan done very well. I think Monaghan can hold their heads up high for how this season has gone. I think they can be very proud of how this season has gone. But I think all in all, Dublin just probably have that little bit more quality. I mean, Cormac Costello was outstanding, 7 points. In the first half, he was unplayable. And see, that's the thing. Like, Con Basquel today was marked out of the game, and it might have been Ryan Wiley maybe who was picking him up, but he didn't have a say in the game at all. He wasn't in the game. You barely even knew he was playing. And that's probably been Dublin's best forward this season. Con O'Callaghan, again, like, he's not probably the same sort of forward he was 3-4 years ago in 2017, 2018. He's a lot more of a man who's going to set up plays around them, set up scores around them. So he only kicked 2 points. Paul Mannion only kicked 2 points. But the thing is, when you focus so much on Basquel, Con O'Callaghan, Paul Mannion, you're going to leave someone like Costello free. And Costello at times on that left-hand side in the first half was getting into acres of space, and he was outstanding. He kicked 7 points in total. And it was measured. It was controlled. There was never, I don't know if Monaghan ever led in the game. going into the final 10 minutes when it was 11 points apiece, you were kind of thinking, Jesus, Monaghan might have a chance here, especially when they brought Jack McCarron on. You were thinking, like, Jesus, Monaghan have a serious opportunity here, but they probably just never quite kicked on. And actually, probably the most telling point was in the first half. Noel Scully gets black-carded, and Monaghan, I think Dublin were actually outscored Monaghan during that period. And I remember even when Noel Scully came back on, I said to my mate beside me in Croke Park, I was saying, geez, I didn't even know he was missing. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even know he wasn't playing. And that's not being disrespectful. I just really did not know he was playing. Like, I thought we were actually okay. And I almost forgot that we had a black card at that point. And obviously Kieran Kilkenny comes on. He was very good. He kept possession very, very well. And we just controlled the game. We controlled the tempo of the game, controlled the measure of the game. And it was very, very comfortable. Very, very comfortable enough, I would say. Obviously, going into the final 10 minutes, it was 11 points apiece. It wasn't comfortable as such, but I always was confident that we would have enough to do it. And eventually we did. Lee Gannon, I thought, had a very good game as well. Owen Merchant, who started, had a very decent game. James McCarthy was very impressive. Brian Fenton looking like his best as well. He kicked 2 points. He was very, very good as well. So, yeah, all around, very, very good, very, very good display. Plenty of comments. Forgive me if my voice is going a little bit here, but yeah, obviously in Croke Park, shouting the lads on and everything else. So there we go. On Clissa said, what's the story? Aaron, great result. Would you start Kieran Kilkenny, Jack McCaffrey or Dean Rock in the final? All made an impact, says our good man on Clitta. I think Kieran Kilkenny should start ahead of Noel Scully. I think, it was a silly thing for Noel Scully to do. Pull your man back, while on the ground, and it was kind of a bit harsh in some ways, like obviously coming back from his black card and then getting substituted straight away. It might have felt a bit embarrassing for Noel Scully, who's obviously a legend of Dublin. But at the end of the day, Dublin have to be ruthless. And, like Kieran Kilkenny, to be fair, was probably Dublin's best player last year. And there he is on the bench. So I definitely would start him, I think. A player like him, he hasn't been in the best of form this year. But I think Noel Scully, I don't know if he's been any better, to be honest with you. So I think someone like Kilkenny would be perfect. Jack McCaffrey was very good, obviously, as well. He's kind of coming back into his best. He's obviously had, a few injury problems here and there. Obviously comes on in the second half and does very well, gets himself a point. Would I start Dean Rock? Probably not. Pace-wise, I'm not too sure if he quite has it. And yeah, look, he's probably going to retire at the end of the season. That's the word on the street. So yeah, look, he's a legend of the game, legend of Dublin GAA, and hopefully he gets his his farewell story on in a couple of weeks' time. Harsh scoreline on Monaghan when you consider it was 12 each on 60 minutes, not taking their goal chances first half proved costly. Yeah, Monaghan had some big chances, hit the crossbar, a few other half opportunities not going their way. Mick Fitzsimons, what a game, what a display, what a performance for Mick Fitzsimons. He got, he's threw his body in front of some of those Monaghan attacks time and time again, and that was really, really impressive, I felt, from Mick Fitzsimons. Derek says the test will stand to them. It certainly will. Dubs turn up. The burners a couple of notches, and Monaghan couldn't live with them. Dublin's cynical under such tight marking and physical encounters. I'll need to see that back. I don't know if I've seen a huge amount of cynicism. I mean, I've seen a bit, both ways at times, but I'll certainly need to obviously go back and watch it back. But there we go. Workmail says Dublin aren't going to play much different in the All-Ireland final. Derry or Kerry will be well organised, and Dublin will only play as well as they are allowed. And look, yeah, Dublin were, it did surprise me in the first half how standoffish Dublin were. Like, that was one thing I was saying at half time, was like Dublin we were allowing Monaghan keep the ball. We were allowing them keep the ball. We started pressing up on them in the second half, but we weren't doing so in the first half. In the first half, we allowed them do what Monaghan wanted to do, which was keep the ball for large parts, suck the life out of Dublin, slow the game down. And yeah, we didn't really press up on them. We didn't take the game to Monaghan enough in the first half, I felt. It was only really sort of towards the end of the second half. And whether that was a tactic from Dublin and Desi Farrell and everything else to say, look, in the first half, let's keep it tight, let's stay in the game. And then in the second half, let's press on and really sort of put the nail in the coffin. I'm not entirely sure. But Dublin were very set up we've seen Dublin set up very well organised defensively for the majority of this year. We've had a lot of men behind the ball. We did it against Clare in the league. Against Derry at times, we've done something similar. We mirrored very much what they did. Kildare, Roscommon, we were set up very, very deep and trying to nullify their attack. Is that a game plan to try and stop Kerry in their prime in Croke Park, the likes of David Clifford, Sean O'Shea, everything else? Maybe it is, and maybe we will see that game plan come to fruition in Croke Park in 2 weeks' time, provided Kerry win tomorrow. But we were very, very well set up defensively, but we were allowing Monaghan control the game and dictate the game. And in the first half, I was very surprised by that because Dublin, we should be the ones that are taking the game to Monaghan. We should be the ones that are pressing them up the pitch. We should be pressing their kickouts. And we weren't doing so. And look, there was a few moments today from Dublin that weren't perfect. Passes were going astray. Cluxton nearly dropped the ball in the net, which was, Jesus, that was incredible, a crazy moment. So it wasn't perfect from Dublin. It wasn't vintage. But throughout the entirety of this year, it hasn't been perfect. We've just done enough in the big moments, and we've turned up in the big moments. And look, ultimately, we're in the final now, one game away from the All-Ireland, and that's all that matters. And you would look at the majority of Dublin's performances this year, and you would say we're nowhere near capable of beating a team like Kerry in an All-Ireland final. But at the same time, Kerry have not looked exactly perfect either. And how will they do tomorrow against a team like Derry? That's going to be interesting. That is going to be interesting, in my opinion. And the weather today was horrendous. It was very bad in Croke Park. It definitely had an effect on both games. Mead and Down was a poor enough game. It was very slow. Players were slipping and sliding all over the place. And it was the same in the Dublin game. Players were slipping and sliding left, right, and centre. Bambi on ice, all that crack. It was very evident to see. And will we get weather like that in 2 weeks' time? I really hope we don't. But yeah, there we go. Daniel says, incredible to now Cluxton has 13 clean sheets in a row. It's incredible, isn't it? And look, you could argue McLaughlin has that opportunity, a couple of yards and hits the post. Cluxton has been phenomenal and he's been brilliant. But look, obviously he's had a few slices of luck along the way. But look, the best goalkeepers, you earn your own luck. And to think Dublin conceded a goal in every game in the league, barring the game versus Kildare, and actually versus Laois in the Leinster Championship, we conceded 2 goals in that game as well. And to be fair, it's kind of mad when you think of it, because David O'Hanlon, I thought, was doing a great job for Dublin between the sticks. He was making saves. He made a couple of big saves versus Cork. It wasn't his fault necessarily that the goals were going in. I think defensively, we were just cut open time and time again. But is Cluxton being there? Is that bringing more confidence to our defenders? Mick Fitzsimons is doing very well. Davy Byrne looks more like the Davy Byrne from a couple of years ago. Jack McCaffrey, Owen Merchant, we're all defending brilliantly. And we just look really, really well organised. Even towards the end of the game, that moment where Rory Beggan has the ball and there's 5-6 Dublin lads pressing Beggan, and we eventually force the turnover. We just look very, very well focused and well organised. Owen says, didn't seem like Hawkeye was on today. There was a few that looked wide, but we're just umpire's decision. And Sam also says, where was Hawkeye today? I don't know. You just don't know what Hawkeye at the best times. Sometimes it works, data unavailable, all this crack. Hawkeye is just a bit of a joke, isn't it? It's a bit of a joke. And I don't know. Is it time to scrap it all together? I don't know. But I don't know. I never really seen any big decisions. Ultimately, look, Dublin won by 7 points in the end. Obviously, that was a scoreline that probably flattered Dublin ever so slightly. The goal at the end, would that goal have come if, Monaghan were 1-2 points down? Probably not. They probably would have been a lot more tighter, a lot more well organised. And obviously the Mead down game, Mead looked fairly comfortable towards the end, but it's a hard one to know really if Hawkeye would have made much of an impact anyway. But I don't know. We'll see what happens going into the final. Timber says the Derry v Kerry game will be the biggest test for Kerry due to how Derry play, and the weather is meant to be shit tomorrow. It is, and it was terrible today. It was very poor today. But Monaghan, to be fair, I was expecting Monaghan to sit deep, and Dublin to keep the ball and having to try and break through Monaghan. But actually, in many ways, it was actually the other way around. Dublin were so organised at the back, and Monaghan were keeping the ball for large parts. But Dublin were very good, and as one of the other comments says here from Derek, Dublin hit 80% accuracy in their shooting in the second half. And even in the first half as well, we didn't hit our first wide until the end of the first half. So I'll have to go back and check the stats, but shooting wise, Dublin were very, very clinical, and that does go to show, and it probably does come down to experience playing in these big games in Croke Park, having the composure, the tenacity to be able to take these opportunities and take these chances, and that's probably the difference. And that was the difference in the end for Dublin. Do you know? Sean says Kerry going to hammer Dublin in the final. I mean, look, who knows? It could happen. You will see how, but look, Kerry have to win tomorrow. Kerry have to do the business against Derry. And, a lot of people coming into these semi-finals said Dublin and Kerry will walk it. It'll just be comfortable. I've seen a few, comments in the prediction saying Dublin will beat Monaghan by 26 points and Kerry will beat Derry by 20 points. And it was never going to be that way because Monaghan, these are all Ireland semi-finals. These are good teams. Do you know what I mean? These aren't quarterfinals. These aren't Leinster finals. These are good teams. Monaghan are a good side. And, Monaghan aren't going anywhere. Like, they'll be back next year. I genuinely think Monaghan can get back to an All-Ireland semi-final next year, be thereabouts. And, they're playing, probably one of the best teams in the country today. And going into the final 10 minutes, they just missed that extra. They missed a few chances in the first half, like Began put one or two wide. I remember a few. They hit the post on numerous occasions at the start of the game. It was kind of bizarre. I think they hit the post like 3 or 4 times in a row. So they weren't a million miles away. And if Monaghan had got the lead in that spell when they drew level, and there was moments where it looked like they were going to take the lead, the game could have turned. Momentum could have went their way, and it mightn't have been a million miles away. Like, there was a huge amount of Monaghan fans in Croke Park, especially where I was in the Upper Cusack, and it might have just given them that lift. In my opinion. But there we go. Owen says, what do you think it would take for Derry to win tomorrow? I don't know. I think, to be honest with you, I think Derry will have to just, you're looking at, it's the finest of margins. It's the smallest of margins. Like, even a few of Monaghan's missed chances in that first half probably cost them hitting the bar. Do you know that way? Like, those were the moments. Obviously, in the second half, they lost 3-4 kickouts in a row. And, to be fair, Monaghan done so much right for so much large parts. But when it comes down to these games against the best teams, it's the smallest of margins. And for Derry, accuracy will need to be above 80%. And you're probably hoping that someone like David Clifford probably has an off day. Do you know that way? Like, you're hoping he's not on his game or maybe picks up an injury. I mean, you never want to see players pick up injuries, but, Derry fans will be secretly saying to themselves, look, I hope he's, not at his best. So, yeah, look, Derek also says Derry will have to hang on going into the 10 minutes. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, do Kerry have the same firepower that Dublin have coming off the bench? I'm not entirely sure that they do. Like, for Dublin to bring on players like Jack McCaffrey, Dean Rock, obviously Ciarán Kilkenny in the first half as well, to have that luxury, like Noel Scully makes that mistake, bringing down one of the Monaghan players, gets black carded. He's one yellow away from Dublin going down to 14 men. Like, what other team in the country would have the luxury of just taking him off right there and then in the semi-finals and bringing on someone like Ciarán Kilkenny? Do you know that way? Like, there's not many, it's almost like Kerry taking off Paddy Clifford and having to replace him with someone else. Do you know that way? Like, Noel Scully is a fantastic footballer and he's been really good at times this year, but it was just one of those bad moments. And Dessie Farrell looked at it and thought, you know what? Ciarán Kilkenny right here, I can trust him, I can rely on him. Let's bring him on. Let's take Scully off, because at the end of the day, Scully's potentially one more yellow card away from being sent off, and that completely changes the complexion of the game. If it's a Derry Dublin final, I can see a repeat of the Dublin Donegal 2011 game. Yeah, look, it will be. And look, that, Derry probably need to mirror image what Donegal done to Dublin in 2014. Would Kerry be as naive to fall for that? I don't think they will. I think Kerry will be very dog-wide, and I think they'll try and lure Derry they'll try and mirror Derry at times tomorrow and just try and pick them off. And Dublin done something similar. Like, Dublin didn't go full throttle against Monaghan from the first minute. Like, they were very just they just sat back for the opening 10, 15, 20 minutes and allowed Monaghan to come onto them. And Dublin were actually picking Monaghan off in the counter-attack. And I was under the assumption that it would be the other way around. But Dublin probably just looked at it and thought, look, if we go, full throttle to this Monaghan side, they could expose us at the back and we could get ourselves in trouble. So it was interesting. But look, all in all, fantastic win from a Dublin perspective. Was it the most brilliant, most fantastic performance? I mean, probably not, but accuracy was brilliant. Defensively, we're very good. To be fair, I don't think the lads could have done any more than what they actually gave. And to be honest with you, now that I think about it, it was a good performance because Monaghan are a good team, and we gave everything that we could give, And Dean Rock gets that goal at the end, makes the score look a lot more flatter than maybe what it was. Obviously, Con had a free at the end that I think he put wide, so it could have been an 8-point win. But yeah, great result, great win. And we move on to the final in 2 weeks, and obviously getting tickets and everything else is going to be, it's going to be absolutely mental. Even thinking about trying to get a ticket for that final is going to be crazy. But yeah, I suppose we'll worry about that when the time comes. Cyril Nash says, for a man 35 plus years of age, Conor McManus outskilled some of the Dublin players. Yeah, look, McManus is a phenomenal player, and you would think, you'd wonder, does McManus call it here with the fact that, look, it's been a fantastic season for Monaghan? It's been does he give it any? Does he want to sit on the bench? Does he want to be an impact? Because sometimes you see with players down the years, they want to play, and once it gets to the stage where they're not playing, they'll call it a day and they'll say, look, I just want to play for the club and everything else, and I don't want to have to worry about intercounty if I'm not playing. So it'd be interesting to see what McManus, because he's clearly, obviously he started today, but he's clearly not a regular starter. Do you know what I mean? And is he going to be a regular starter next year? More mileage, more time on the clock, I'm not entirely sure. But I think one thing is for certain: if he does retire, he's going into that management team, isn't he? He's going into that team, and you have his influence, you keep his influence around, even if he's not playing. So there you go. Raymond says, who do you want to face in the final? Look, I think Derry would be, with all due respect, if you're as a Dublin fan who, team who wants to win the All-Ireland and everything else, I think Derry is the easier team to beat. With all due respect, I think Kerry are phenomenal side. But look, at the same time, if Derry can get through Kerry, then that shows that Derry are capable of anything. And if Derry get through Kerry, the momentum that they'll be carrying coming in to the final will be huge. And that's almost a worry for Dublin, because Dublin will then go into the final probably as huge favourites. And it's kind of maybe a bit like Mayo Tyrone 2021, where Mayo were going in as huge favourites. They toppled Dublin. What else have they got to lose? Tyrone going under the radar, come in, catch Mayo cold, win the All-Ireland. And Derry could do something similar. I think the best case scenario as a Dublin fan is if Kerry absolutely hammer Derry tomorrow. The game's over at half-time. Kerry learn absolutely nothing. The game's an absolute walkover. And they go into the final without a significant test, and they go in as big favourites, and that would suit Dublin, I think. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But there we go. We'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Obviously, I was at the game, so look, I didn't see absolutely everything. There was another comment that was flying in here that I'll try to get up. Owen Glass is saying it should have been a free for McManus when the Dublin player was tackling around the neck and the ref let play. Dublin converted into a point. Look, I'll need to see it back. If there was any big decision that I missed or any big moment or anything like that, I do apologise. My phone went dead straight after the game, and I'm literally only in the door about 5 minutes. So I'll have to go back and see. There were some mad moments. I remember the ref was trying to give a 40, or the umpire was trying to give a 45, and it clearly went off McCaffrey. I remember I was in the upper Cusack, the complete other opposite end, and I was like, yeah, that's not a 45, and the replay showed it wasn't a 45. And to be fair, the ref overruled it and did the right thing. But look, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen that, and to be honest, that suggested, decisions-wise, at the end of the day, I think Dublin won fair and square. They were the better team. Monaghan done very well, and they competed very well. But I think Dublin just were ever so slightly the better side, and the game probably went as we expected. So, cheers to anyone who tuned in. Leave a like, subscribe. I'll be going live tomorrow watch along. Derry versus Kerry. It's time to sober up now. I've had about 6-7 points. So, yeah, I'm absolutely bollocks, to be honest with you. So, time for bed. And we did it. Up the lads. All Ireland final. Here we go. Up the boys. Up the Dubs. Come on. This hasn't ended. That's awkward. Here we go. Now it should end.